What is up, everybody? It has been quite some time since I have done an update video on excuse me school, graduate school, or the gym, or anything else like that. Principally because I've been rather busy. I'm currently working full time and all that fun stuff. So, little updates. I did finish my master's degree in American history last August, or this August. Entered the program with a 3.47 GPA, with top marks on both my directed readings course and my capstone project. As to what I wrote my capstone project on, I argued that Truman decided to pursue the atomic bomb option in ending the war against Japan, other than other supposedly available avenues of ending the war, principally because it helped him achieve many of his political, economic, and social goals while operating under the influence of Wilsonianism. Took a lot of influence from Alperovitz, Kolko, even though I have quite a bit of disagreements with Alperovitz, but at the same time I also agreed, notably so, with several consensus scholars, so Robert Maddox, Wilson Miss Campbell. You wouldn't be able to call him consensus, I don't believe, but Richard Frank, and so on and so forth. So the whole thing ended up being about 58 pages, or no, 52 pages plus about 10 pages of bibliography. And I was rather happy with it. I got it actually submitted sometime in July, was the first draft that I managed to get submitted. It was due at the beginning of August, so I finished quite early and managed to get any revisions that I needed to get done, which weren't that many, in before even the end of July. So for the rest of July, all the way into my graduation date in August, I was pretty much chilling. But at the same time that I was writing my master's thesis, I was also taking the last classes that I needed to graduate with another bachelor's of science. And if you guys see me look down, I have a little kitten that is trying to eat my leg, so ignore that. I finished a second bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science in Psychology, with a minor in neuroscience at Indiana University this August as well. Hang on. You guys get to meet the cat. Say hello. Yeah. And ended up with a 3.82 GPA in that. Was incredibly happy with my performance in that domain. Wasn't too impressed with the final project. I was under the impression that we were actually going to do a research project, but due to COVID restrictions and lacking availability of any labs, or just restrictions with being on campus in the first place, which I thought by August would be all done, we weren't able to do that. And so what ended up happening was that the undergraduates just had to do a type of literature review, and I did mine over effective neuroscience from Panskep onward. I got 100 on it. It wasn't that hard, and I had already prepped materials for doing something in that line anyways. So yeah, so that was the school update. As of this moment, I have started or finalized applications to several PhD programs. I have finished applications for Northwestern University in history, Indiana University Bloomington in history, University of Cincinnati in history, and then Purdue University in history. I started an application for Johns Hopkins University's cognitive science graduate program, but after review, I don't really think that they had an avenue in that research program that I was really interested in. Most of it was principally cognitive neuroscience, but with a heavy clinical focus, so I wasn't really looking to do something along those lines. You cannot eat my rice cake. Stop it. Something along those lines. Get out. Stop. Nope. Can't have the frosting either. And so I ended up just not finishing that and retracting that application. The only sort of roadblock that we've run into at this moment is that one of my recommenders, my American Colonial and Revolutionary History professor, still hasn't submitted his letter of recommendation, even though I sent him the original portal to do the applications or submit his letter. I want to say early September. It was about a week after applications even opened. It took me about a week to get all the secondary material, so letter of intent, diversity statements, or what have you, submitted before I could actually ask for the recommendations. Then I had to actually go about asking the various professors if they'd be willing to write me a letter of recommendation, which wasn't difficult. But given the nature of how, come here, of how, oh God, what are you doing? Good Lord, just how difficult it has been to actually be face to face with a lot of professors. It's been, I don't want to say difficult or impossible, but it has been a chore actually getting face to face with professors and having them be comfortable enough to actually write me a letter or be familiar enough with me as a person to confidently write me a letter. So that was one hiccup that we ran into. And again, I am a little still just very disappointed in how much of the COVID restrictions are still in place. I understand it's a pandemic, but a lot of it seemed gratuitous given that vaccines were in full swing. We didn't really have a substantial outbreaks in Indiana, but you know, it's done. What's done is done, and I can't really complain about it. Safety comes first. So, other than that, gym updates and things of that sort. I have sort of fallen out of powerlifting training a little bit. A lot of my numbers have gone down pretty substantially. Today I did a 1 rep test on deadlift, and I struggled to pull a 535 single. I have pulled 555, I do believe, about 2 weeks ago. On deadlift, squat, the highest I've gone up is about 465. And then bench, highest I've gone up the last couple of weeks is about 385 for a single. And that is down from, on bench, a 440-pound single and a 430-pound pause. And then squat, that's down from a 530-pound squat that I did last program. And then on deadlift, that's down from a 610 deadlift that I did pretty comfortably, I would say, around December. And the reason being is that I've been rather busy at my new job. I took a job as a store manager at Hibbett Sports just to kind of have a source of income. I was unemployed for about 10 months while working on my master's due to GNC filing for bankruptcy. I did lose my job, and we did lose our store in my location in Madison. And then it took quite a while for me to actually find another job that was willing to work with me on schooling and whatnot. And so it's not a bad job. There's a lot of overtime involved. I'm usually at the store about 50 to 52 hours a week. I think the lowest amount of hours that I put in the last month was, I think, 47, and that was last week, and that was just because I had a doctor's appointment. So, yeah. As to what I'm planning on doing, and I'll end this update relatively, or I'll keep this update relatively terse. One, I'd like to see where PhD applications end up. I think that I did have some very glaring weaknesses in my application. I think that my lack of any real lab experience in the domain of psychology would have really impacted any psychology or science applications that I would have done, and that's honestly the reason that I didn't go through with those applications. Second, the biggest concern that I have is that I don't have any publications. So even though I have, a pretty decent GPA, I think cumulatively between everything, it's about 3.6 or 3.7, about that. And, I do already have a graduate degree, and from what my professors tell me, and at least not to toot my own horn, I think I'm a good writer. And I provided, the highest graded papers that I had for my writing sample. I just don't think that there's enough evidence for me personally going into this program to indicate that I have the research expertise or experience that they would be looking for, in which it wouldn't be more of a time investment to make sure that I have the fundamentals down, because I know I can do research at the graduate level given my performance in my master's degree program, and I know I can write at the graduate level given my scores and my performance in my master's program. I just don't know if the individuals interviewing or who would be looking at my application would really be aware of that or be able to discern that from the materials that I submitted. And then again, there is the issue of that professor who just hasn't submitted his letter yet, which I'm hoping gets done, considering that the application cycle ends in December and we are currently in November 15th. So not sure what's up with that. I sent him an email, or I've sent him reminders every 2 weeks, And then I sent him an email directly Monday asking him if he had even received those, and I have yet to get a response. So a little concerned about that. Not too concerned. This guy's a pretty straight shooter. He and I conversed quite a bit when I had him in class, but it is still worrisome. I know a lot of people are busy and stuff just kind of slips their minds, and I don't know the schedule or his schedule. So other than that, my hope is that they see my application and they look at the fact that, oh, wow, he did a graduate degree. He got a good GPA. He submitted a good writing sample. But at the same time, he showed, real commitment to academic excellence, because at the same time he was doing his master's degree, he was doing another undergraduate degree in psychology and neuroscience, and ended with I think it was a magna cum laude level GPA. It was on the dean's list every semester that he was there. So that's my hope, that they look at this and like, okay, well, this kid's a hard worker, so we'd like to have him here. Another potential issue that I see in this is that I didn't really have a particular set or a particular direction already in mind as to what I wanted to research in a graduate program if I were to be admitted into one. And I tried to think about it and tried to really, or in my statement of intent, in my writing sample, I tried to demonstrate what I was most comfortable writing about. Most of it's, the interconnection between political and military history, or certain political motivations and military actions in history. But I just don't think that was very particular enough to really get a good idea if I were admitted into the program of where I would like to go. I tried to find schools that had a relatively diverse spectrum of interests in the history faculty. I think that I managed to do that. But I also did constrain myself a little bit to more local colleges universities as where I am. So I think the farthest one that I applied to was Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. My prior advisor at Hanover College was a Northwestern graduate, and he told me that given my interests, in political, cultural, military history, would be a good place to go. And after reviewing the faculty and their interests, and then I actually purchased a couple of their books and reading through them, I think it would be a good home. So that would definitely be choice number one. Choice number two would be IU Bloomington, and then number three, I would say it's a tie between Purdue and University of Cincinnati. I was a little bit more impressed with University of Cincinnati's history program, primarily because they require a master's to even be considered for entry. So that was good, because that, I think, to me at least, shows that, I have one of the credentials that they are looking for in an applicant. But I'm not really getting my hopes up just because of the potential shortcomings that I have with my applications. However, if I don't get in this cycle, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to, go out and buy a 20 feet of nylon rope, find the nearest bridge, and yeet myself off of it or anything. But I will have to take a step back and really consider, if this is something that I want to do. When I know that you could file for application waivers on on PhD applications and doctorate applications in a general sense. But one of the things that really irked me and rubbed me the wrong way was a lot of the people, some of my recommenders included, that I spoke to about, my professional goals and motivations. I want to be a professor. Teaching has always been a passion of mine, and I've never had more fun than standing up in front of people and talking about things that I'm interested in, be that history, be it psychology, or what have you. A lot of them seem concerned more so than supportive, and I think that a lot of that has to do with me openly saying to them that I was well aware that the job market for historians was dog shit. And at the same time, I was also well aware that I know that the nature by which universities do business is changing, and I don't foresee the job market getting any better. And I do see that the system that we have now, sort of this contractual basis, short-term, no real tenure track opportunity, and adjunct purgatory that we have, I see that enduring. And so a lot of people, obviously, with that kind of insight or pre-sight, ask, well, why do you want to spend another 5 years in university then? even if that is something that you want to do, that's a 20th of your life if you think about it, and no real reward or no guarantee. And, initially I just kind of blew that off. I was like, well, it's something I want to do. I don't really, I don't care about the consequences. If it's something I want to do, I'll make it work somehow. But after, 4 applications, each of which cost, on average about $70, $85, you really do have to think about this from the perspective of inputs and outputs. So what exactly would I be putting into it? What exactly would I be getting out of it? Well, like they said, I'd be putting into it about another 5 years at minimum for a PhD. And that's if I finished. Attrition rates are absurdly high for especially the social sciences and the humanities. And then what about, opportunity loss or revenue or just, money loss while you're in that program? I currently make, not spectacular money at my job. I don't want to stay at Hibbett Sports my whole life. But, I make about $45,000 a year, and I don't really have any debt obligations outside of what's left of my Graduate Plus loan and what's left on my car. But at the same time, money's not everything, but you do have to think about if you're sacrificing 5 years of your life, what guarantees do you have that you're going to be able to You okay? I think my cat might be throwing up. Ignore that. We'll get to her in a second. What guarantees do you have that you're actually going to be able to make a living after the sacrifices that you're putting in? So the output to that would be, wow, you're Dr. Howe now. That's great. Where are you going to work? And your answer is probably the local community college for, a 1 to 2 year contract that maybe at best pays you about what I'm making now in retail. So, with the sacrifices that are entailed in a PhD program, I have given second thought to professional degrees, such as potentially pursuing a medical degree. I would have to go back into undergrad and finish, I do believe, 2 units of physics and then the last unit of organic chemistry. I'm not really concerned about that, but at the same time, the prospect of me having to go back into an undergraduate program and take more undergraduate classes after all the shit that I've done, having 3 degrees, it changes your perspective. And so, you're like, okay, well, I've done 3, one of which was a graduate degree. Do I really want to spend more time doing that? But, if you could get into a good medical school, if I could get into a good medical school, and, that does become something that I'm interested in, it was at one point, then I might look at that avenue. But I'm just kind of at a point right now to where, and I think everybody goes through this, especially students after they've been in school for quite some time or once they finish a program, that I don't really know if what I thought I wanted to do is what I wanted to do. And even, if I do get into a program, I made a commitment to myself that unless it was fully funded and offered, a decent living stipend, and they can demonstrate to me that, my success was a part of the equation here, and then it wasn't just going to be, like all the other horror stories we've all heard, especially if you're a graduate student, to where you kind of have to work within the constraints of your advisor's interests, and anything outside of that is just sort of shot down, and you're really just there to pad out the rest of their careers as they head into the emeritus status. Not really looking to do that. So especially if you're going to be spending 5 to 7 years at this place. So definitely some thoughts going into this that, have started to bring up some difficult questions. I don't have answers for those right now. I probably will as time goes on, but it is what it is. And so we'll see how they end up. We'll see where the applications fall. Going forward, I have another 2 weeks until the end of the application cycle. Like I said, the actual application window ends in December. So we'll see, and then I will make another video about how those applications went, just to kind of talk about that, what I heard back, or, if this professor even submits his letter. As for training, I think that one of the principal reasons that I've hit such, a wall is that I have really committed myself elsewhere. I haven't really been focusing on any particular goals. I don't really have any goals in mind at this point. I don't have any meets lined up, and so it's really difficult to compel yourself to go into the gym with no clear goal in mind or no end result in mind, such as winning a meet or something like that. especially when you're working 50 plus hours a week. You go to the gym and the only thing on your mind is, let's get this session done. Let's have a good workout. But, there isn't any reason to really, try and set, a 500-pound bench press when it isn't. It's more of a gym lift than anything. And as the saying goes, gym lifts don't matter. So I'd like to change that. I don't really like the feeling of going into the gym just to go into the gym. My body fat's risen just a little bit. I'd say I'm about 13% body fat right now, which is not somewhere that I want to be. I'm not heavier per se, and I'm still in pretty decent shape. It's just I know that I could be better. I know that I could be training harder or smarter at the very least. And so going forward, I'm definitely going to be taking some time to reconfigure my training and really, look at what my goals are as a power lifter and as somebody who does want to continue competing, but at the same time has, professional commitments elsewhere that really limit my ability. I wouldn't say limit, but, well, limit's the right word, not inhibit. Limit my ability to train how I'd like to. So that's just a quick update. Last thing I say, I'm sure you guys noticed that I am coughing. I do not have COVID. I had a really, really bad case of bronchitis the last couple of weeks. They put me on an inhaler, doxycycline, and then a steroid. So my cat got it. And so I'm getting better. It's just my lungs are really inflamed. It sounded, when he put a stethoscope up to my chest, the comparison he made was that it sounded like somebody blowing air in a wet sack. That wasn't what I what I wanted to hear. But I am getting better. And docs, I have about a week left of my antibiotics and everything else. So hopefully I'll be 100% here soon. If not, it is what it is. But yeah, I will probably start posting more often. I noticed that I do have a bit more motivation when I know that people are watching my videos. I doubt very many people watch a 22-minute video of me talking to myself. But, this was just an update of the last... I think the last update video that I did was actually it was either over the Marxist School of History or the New Left School of History. So it's been almost a full year since I made something or along those lines. So if you guys have any questions or you want any content for me to go over, I do consider myself to be a historian now. So if you want me to talk about any topics in history or psychology, I will need some prep time. Or if you guys want any other videos, a deadlift video, a bench video, a how-to video on deadlift, squat, or bench, or any of the main lifts, or what my diet looks like right now, just let me know. I'd be happy to do that. So yeah, I'll see you guys, and stay safe.